The following is a content warning. This episode contains mention of death and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. In the late afternoon on August 30th, 2019, in an otherwise sunny and pristine day, a body was found floating in Green Lake, a popular recreational and park area in northern Seattle. When police arrived, they pulled the woman's body from the water. It was 23-year-old Autumn Lee Stone. She had a vest zipped up to her neck. Underneath the vest, shoelaces were tied around her neck like she had been strangled. She was fully clothed, but her shoes were missing. At the time, first responders thought it looked suspicious. When detectives arrived, they quickly started telling the public it was likely a suicide, and in just a few weeks, her case was closed. Immediately, friends and family didn't buy it. Questions began to formulate. How do you kill yourself with shoelaces? How did her body get into the lake? Why was she at Green Lake in the first place? The questions mounted. The police initially remained adamant that there was no indication of defensive wounds or foul play. But then, in 2020, the Seattle Police Department suddenly reopened Autumn's case. It's been almost 4 years since Autumn died, and the family is still waiting for answers and justice. This is the death of Autumn Stone.
All of a sudden she goes, I have to tell you something, and I can't tell anybody else, and I can't tell my family because I've already upset them enough, but I have to tell you. And I was like, okay. She said, I am going to get answers today. And she stressed the word today. I said, what do you mean? She said, I am going to get answers today. I need to know why he hurt our precious, perfect little baby. I need to know what made him act as such and hurt our little baby. He was our baby. He's perfectly, he was perfect. What made him? She said, I have to know. I have to know right now.
When I first started researching the death of Autumn Stone, one of the first images I came across was a photo of her in a wedding dress, smiling, beaming as a bride-to-be. Her smile looked like it lit up any room she entered, and even from photos, you sensed she radiated an infectious warmth. In every picture I could find of Autumn, she was smiling and often surrounded by her family or clutching her young children. She was young and full of life. Everyone I talked to for this series who knew Autumn told me she was happy, well-liked, funny, hardworking, and adored and loved by everyone she knew. Here's her older sister Janine, her father James, and stepmom Amy on Autumn.
She was the sweetest person you'd ever meet. She would bend over backwards for anybody. She was very selfless and kind and just had the biggest heart. She was an amazing person. She was one of my best friends. She always kind of looked up to me and bugged me a little, when I was younger and I didn't quite understand. She was always on my tail. She was attached to my hip all the time. And sometimes I was like, I just want to be alone. We were 5 years apart. So sometimes I wanted to be an angsty teen who wanted to be left alone, and she wanted to be right next to me doing exactly what I was doing. She'd steal my clothes, typical sister stuff. We had a lot of fun, though. Even in the little bicker moments, we still got along really well.
She was a happy, I'd almost say bubbly, but person who cared about everyone else before herself. And the thing that mattered the most to her in her world was her boys. What do you have to say? Anything?
She was going to be the best mom ever.
And she was going to prove to everybody that she was the best mom in the whole world. And she would have bubble wrapped the earth if she could to keep those boys safe. Loved her children, loved her family. She always wanted everybody to be happy and at peace. That was very important to her. And she always wanted everybody to get along.
In 2018, Autumn worked at Nordstrom Cafe. Also working there was a coworker and friend named Kimberly. Kimberly saw Autumn as a young, hard-working woman who was determined and striving for success. The two also discovered they had some stuff in common, and a bond soon formed.
She was the type of person that showed determination. Like she was really driven to learn new things, and she wanted to succeed in whatever she was doing. And she was a young mom, and she was making a life for herself, and she had a new relationship going, and she just, she was a ray of sunshine in the kitchen. After a couple of weeks of her working in the dish pit, she started out as this, I don't want to say timid girl, but kind of like a timid girl. And then within 3 weeks, she sort of became a badass bitch. And she started to tell people how she wanted her area organized. And this is how I do it. So this is how I expect you to set it up for me, kind of thing. And so she went from apologizing for literally nothing all the time to telling people how to do it. So I love success like that. I love watching people grow like that. So I always thought that was really cool. And then she decided she wanted to learn how to cook and come on the line. And so I was one of the cooks that was training her. And we just became really, really quick friends. She was around the same age as my oldest son, and she had a young son. She had her first son when she was young, and I was 20 when I had my first son. So we talked about that a lot. Oh, we also have people in common that she grew up with that were family friends of mine from when I was growing up. So it was kind of one of those two worlds meeting one situation. So I think that's another reason because we were so close, because that family that we were both friends with was just the kind of open arm, loving family, no judgment. And so I think both of us immediately felt comfortable talking with each other because, you wouldn't be friends with them if you were different ways. So she just came across as this young woman that was making her way in the world, and she was determined to make a life for her and her son, and she was determined to succeed in everything she had planned, and she was just a ball of fun energy.
She was also head over heels in a new relationship with a coworker named Tyler Washington. At first, Kimberly says the two were in love and were embracing the bliss period that comes with any new relationship.
Their relationship was baby brand new. And when I say baby brand new, I mean maybe a couple of months when Autumn and I really started to talk and become close. So I want to say they were together for about 3 or 4 months when Autumn and I started becoming really close. So I know she started working at the cafe real quickly after they started dating. I want to say within weeks. So they were cute, disgustingly cute, holding hands. They were silly with each other, and it was cute because when they worked the same shift, it wasn't like they would hang all over each other, but every now and again, he'd walk by and kiss her cheek, or gross, disgusting cuteness. It was, and it was just, they were so in love. They were so in love with each other. And it was really, it was cute because she just, I think, and I actually hate saying this, and I've said this before, but I think being in that relationship with Tyler helped her grow a lot of confidence within herself. And I really hate that it was him that did that for her, possibly. I don't know if I can give it 100%, but I'm glad I got to see that happen. And so, like, in watching their relationship grow, I also got to watch her grow. So there were really no red flags at that point in time for me to even, like, think about. It was just like they were cute and in love, and that was them.
It wasn't long into Autumn's relationship with Tyler that Autumn dropped a couple of big pieces of news to Kimberly. She and Tyler were trying to have a baby, and they were going to get married the following summer. Kimberly, who at the time was also leaving Nordstrom and planning a move out of state to Montana, says Autumn, for the most part, seemed happy.
So she told me about a week before I left Nordstrom in April that her and Tyler were talking about trying to have a baby. And I was like, okay, don't, please. And then I was like, you know what? It's not my life. Like, at first, my first initial thought was, please don't. But then, because the relationship was so new, she did tell me that they were talking about trying. And then after I moved to Montana, she called me. It was like early November, and she told me that they were expecting and they were super excited, and it was another little boy, and, you know, they were thrilled. They were so happy, and it was everything she wanted to happen. And they talked about getting married. They were making plans to get married, and everything seemed to be almost too perfect, but she was so happy. Her happiness was so contagious. Like, when she would be that friend, if you were in a situation that you're not supposed to laugh, she would be the friend that makes you laugh because she's laughing. And her laughter is so contagious. So there would be, like, dumb things that happen in the kitchen, and, like, it would be tense for a minute, and then all of a sudden you hear Autumn just giggling. And then, like, within a few seconds, everybody else is laughing too. So it was like she just had a way to lift everybody's spirits and, like, lift a room from being tense and negative. And it was, I don't know, I loved that about her.
Autumn's second child was born in the summer of 2019. But what was supposed to be an exciting and joyful time in Autumn's life abruptly shifted to something darker. On August 21st, Autumn stepped out to get some food. She was exhausted and hungry from caring for her baby, and left the sleeping baby with her fiancé and grandparents. But when she returned, less than 20 minutes later, the baby was limp and struggling to breathe. They rushed the infant to the hospital, where doctors diagnosed the child with a traumatic brain injury and broken ribs. Here's Autumn's mother, Charity.
So, like, I have pictures of the baby when he was still in the hospital, literally a couple days before she died. You know, like, he's got all of these feeding tubes in his nose. He's got wires and harnesses, like, all this stuff attached to him, all of these little monitors, you know. And, you know, he's got these wires in his face and all this stuff, you know, and it's like the day after Autumn died, there's this picture of him, and he just has one little tube left, just one little feeding tube going in his nose. And it's like, even his health, like, everything about him just looked better. And I want to say in my beliefs that it's part of that is that Autumn was finally able to go in there and see him. Because being one of the parents, she didn't have the option to go visit him in the hospital. So that was very hard. You know, I mean, like, my dad and Val and myself, like, we all went down and took the lie detector test. And as far as I know, Autumn did too. But with her being a parent, she didn't have the ability to go and see him in the hospital. Of us did, so we were able to take pictures and stuff like that and share, and she could call and talk to the nurses and, you know, get updates that way and see how he was doing and if there was any improvements on his health. And You know, because like I said, he coded 4 times. We almost lost him.
Medical staff became suspicious, as they did not believe the injuries could have happened accidentally. Child welfare workers then explained to Autumn that they were taking the baby away from her pending an investigation. Then it was revealed to Autumn that her fiancé's past was a contributing factor in the decision.
I did not know Tyler very well. The first time I met him, we were going out for Autumn's 21st birthday. He seemed nice. He seemed funny. I got to know him kind of while they were dating. Like I said, Autumn and I were close, but when she loves hard. And she loved her babies. And once she had her baby, she wasn't very social anymore. She didn't really go out. So it was us hanging out as family, either at her house or at mine, whenever the timing worked out. And when she was in a relationship, they were her focus too. So she spent a lot of time with Tyler. They lived together. They were always together. I never saw any arguments. She did tell me that they used to argue about money a lot, but that's pretty typical when you live with someone for the first time. I mean, not the first time. She lived with her first love, Jacob. They lived together, but same thing. They argue about money. You live with someone and you're young and you're figuring things out. You're going to argue about money. So I didn't see that as a flag. That was the only thing she ever told me that they argued about. She's like, sometimes we argue about money. And that was kind of a lot coming from her. She wouldn't always share her burdens because she felt they were hers to deal with. But at the same time, she didn't stress out too much about stuff like that because she's a fixer. She was always being helpful and fixing problems and always happy, always looking at the positive side, always looking at the silver lining. If you were ever in a bad mood, she'd get you right out of it. And I never got anything from him in a negative manner. So I don't know. Finding out about his history just blew my mind because I had no idea.
According to several local newspapers, in 2013, Tyler Washington, 18 at the time, was arrested after his 5-week-old baby girl was found in serious condition with a skull fracture, bleeding, and swelling of the brain, as well as fractured ribs. In September 2014, Tyler was sentenced to 5 years for assault on a child. The judge who presided over the case was told the infant had permanent brain damage that impacted the mobility of her leg and arm on the left side of her body. The child also suffered from seizures, which will likely have lifelong impacts. Judge Linda Crease called the abuse appalling. Tyler told the police he had just snapped and was battling anger issues. Ultimately, Tyler only served 2 years of his sentence and was released. Autumn's family was shocked and devastated when they found out about this information.
So when we found out about his daughter, right, it was, I'm going to say this is after he was in the hospital, in Children's Hospital for more than a week. We had a family meeting at CPS office in Everett, okay? At the Department of Social and Health Services, we had a family meeting. So there was Jamie and Amy, there was myself, there was Autumn, there was Tyler, there was my dad, and there was Val. And so we're all sitting around this table, and this lady starts talking to us, and she basically, blurts out, so, does anybody know about, Tyler's past? And there's all this shit written on this whiteboard or whatever. And we're all just flabbergasted. None of us knew that he had another child because, and honestly, I know for a fact that he hid this information from us because obviously I wouldn't want him to be anywhere near my daughter. Like Tyler is so good at faking people out. I mean, like I never had any doubts about him. Like I literally had helped pay for their wedding. They were supposed to be getting married on September 7th. They had their place picked out already. They, like her wedding dress, like all this stuff. And if I knew anything at all that he was this kind of man, I wouldn't be helping out and, calling him my son. And, like it's devastating to have somebody be so, I don't know, two-faced, double-sided, evil. I don't even know the right words, but so like I said, on this whiteboard, there's all this information, and basically she runs through this knowledge of how he had went to prison for doing the same thing to his daughter, and, how he has restraining orders. He can't go and see her, he can't go see the daughter, and, but nobody knew. Autumn didn't know. We were floored, We leave this family meeting. We go back to my dad's house, and Tyler he literally packed his shit because we said, you have to get, excuse my language, you have to get the fuck out of here now. You no longer can be here. We took his house key. He didn't have a ride. We didn't really care. We packed up all of his shit, everything that he couldn't carry, we put outside for him so that he could come and get it. We changed the locks on the door. We didn't want to have anything to do with him.
When I spoke to Jacob, Autumn's ex, who she had her first child with, he did tell me he tried to warn Autumn of Tyler's past, but said it was unclear if the information stuck with her. One of Autumn's friends also told me that Tyler may have told his version of the story to Autumn about what had happened, but not the actual truth. While Autumn was reeling from everything she was learning, in the hospital, her second baby was fighting for its life. Autumn was doing everything she could to try and see her child and get as many updates from her sister and family as possible. She was also putting together a plan. She was determined and would do anything to get the baby back. She was distancing herself from Tyler and called off their wedding, which was supposed to be set for that September. Here's Janine, followed by Amy, her stepmother, and James, her father.
Most of what we were talking about was just about the progress with the baby. A lot of what we were talking about at that time was the baby and what visiting was like and how that situation is and who's been keeping in touch with her and keeping her in the loop and just checking on her, making sure she was okay. And she was fine. She had a plan. I mean, she wasn't fine, but, she's about as fine as you can be in that situation. She was devastated, but she had a plan in action of what she was going to do next. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get them back. Because that was her world. They were her everything. She made phone calls. She made appointments. She had an appointment with like a child development specialist, and she had like a lie detector test appointment that she had made, and she had plans. She was going to do whatever she needs. I think she even scheduled like a baby CPR class, anything that she could do.
Yeah, she had called me that day because we spoke, every day. And she had called me that day and said that she had called the Everett Police Department and set up her lie detector test for the following Tuesday. So she was excited to get that done. Every phone call that she made was to family members or her attorney, doing whatever it took at all costs to get back to her children. So she was focused, and she was in mama bear mode. I'm going to get to my kids.
As Autumn tried to sort through the chaos and devastation around her, she struggled to hide her anger and confusion about the situation. What happened in her grandparents' house when she went out for food? Who was the person she was supposed to marry? Why had she been lied to about his past? She started hinting to friends and family that she needed answers.
Kimberly is one of the last people Autumn spoke to. She received a phone call from Autumn saying, I need answers. I need to know. Kimberly didn't make the connection at the time, but that's a pretty clear message. It's indirect without being direct. And Autumn was very not confrontational. She was very, what's that word? Passive aggressive. She was very passive aggressive. She was a people pleaser. She didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. She didn't want people to be upset with her. So it makes sense that if that's what she was doing, that she wouldn't tell me, because I was big sister. I was very protective, and I didn't hold back with her. I told her very blunt, straightforward answers about how I felt about things, because Autumn was so sweet. Everyone was so nice. They sugar-coated things for her, and she kind of needed tough big sis sometimes. She didn't always like it, but sometimes, I kind of had to be the firm parental big sis, if that makes sense. And so it makes sense that she wouldn't tell me, because she cared a lot about how I thought, and she knew that I would probably be disappointed, which just kills me, because she knew I loved her no matter what. But it's hard not to be upset, that she wouldn't share that with me. But I get why. It's like when you don't tell your parents things, But, and probably same thing with Mom. She wouldn't want to disappoint anybody. She wouldn't want people to think differently of her, because she still loved him. She did. She told me she did. I told her that was normal. I said, you're not going to just stop loving someone in 1 second. Her and Tyler were about to get married. She had to cancel their wedding, all their plans. She had a dress picked out. It was big. And she still loved him. She didn't know how to process that, and she didn't know. She also knew she wasn't supposed to be talking to him. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was a secret down low, don't tell anybody.
According to conversations Autumn had with both family and friends, she planned to meet Tyler at a popular park called Green Lake in northern Seattle on Friday, August 30th, 2019.
I was one of the last people family-wise to see her, because I knew that she was going to go to Green Lake that day. At the time, I was working second shift at Boeing. I'm still there, but now I'm on first shift. So she came into my room. It was between 9 and 9:30 in the morning. I don't remember exactly what time it was, but she had come in to basically give me hugs and, and say goodbye and everything. And that was very normal for her. She was very upbeat and happy. She was in good spirits, back in the day, way back before all of this dramatizing, stuff happened to her. It was our family place. Myself and her sister Janine, we used to go there, probably 3 or 4 times a year. We would go there. That was like our family place to go, because it was big. It was, you get good exercise, walk around, beautiful, very beautiful, and it was, we felt safe because it was always crowded with people. I never ever felt uncomfortable there. I never felt, uneasy or anything like that. So when she told me earlier that week that she wanted to go to Green Lake and kind of have some her time before she went, and, she was going to have a visit with her son, because, I'm sure that you've read the story, or you pretty much know, so she didn't have the kids. Eli is her oldest son, And he was with his dad, because him not having proof that Tyler was no longer in the home, he wasn't going to have Eli, like living with Autumn. So she had her visits with him. Boys were her life. They were everything to her. And she would never have taken her own life, And, besides that, I mean, it's like I said, she was in very high spirits that day. She was very happy. She was going to go and get a pedicure. She was just going to have some her time. Now, in my heart of hearts, after talking to her coworker, Kim, I never actually met her face to face. I've talked to her a couple times. She doesn't live around here. I forget where she lives. I want to say maybe Montana or something, but they used to work together at the Nordstrom Cafe in Bellevue. And she told me that Autumn had talked to her after she had left the house with me. And she said that she told Kim that she was going to meet Tyler and that she was going to get some answers on what had happened to the baby.
The very last person Autumn spoke to before going to Green Lake was her friend Kimberly. They had stayed in touch a little since Kimberly moved to Montana. One day, Kimberly saw a Facebook post from Autumn saying to pray for her family. She got a feeling that something was wrong. So, on Friday, August 30th, as she was getting ready for work, she phoned Autumn.
I was getting ready for an event. I am a caterer, and I had about a half hour before I had to leave for my event, and I just decided to call her, and I was not expecting her to answer the phone. I was expecting to leave a voice message, and she actually answered. And we started talking, and I asked her what was going on, and she told me that some things had happened and the baby had been injured, and she can tell me what happened, but she can't really say anything because there is an investigation going on, so she can answer yes and no questions. So immediately I start thinking the worst. Immediately I start thinking, oh my God, he did something. He being Tyler. And she starts to tell me about what had happened to the baby and about his injuries and about how the baby had to go to the hospital and everything that happened at the hospital. And then she told me about how the police and CPS took them into a room and basically stripped her of her parental rights because Tyler had served time previously for injuring his firstborn child. And Autumn lost it because she was not aware that he was the one that did that to his firstborn child. And so basically all the dots started connecting for her. And as she's telling me this, I'm asking her questions, trying to figure out how this happened. I asked her about her grandparents because I had never met them before. So I didn't know if they maybe tripped with the baby or something. I had no idea really, truly how this injury happened. And I asked her, I said, was your grandpa holding him? Did he fall or something? And that's when she went in to tell me the story about how she hadn't eaten all day. She hadn't taken care of herself. She was starving. Tyler was playing video games. The baby was asleep in his swing, fine, healthy, happy. So Autumn left for 15, 20 minutes to go get food to nourish herself. She's a brand new mom and you need to take care of yourself. And she came back and her entire life was shattered and turned upside down in the matter of a fast food run. She walks in and sees the baby basically lifeless and non-responsive on her grandparents' bed, and they're trying to give him CPR. And from there, the paramedics showed up, And I remember her saying that they wouldn't let her ride in the ambulance. And she was really, really upset about that. That really upset her. And then, so she goes on to explain a little bit more about being told about Tyler's situation with his first child. And in doing that, I said to her, I said, Autumn, hold on a second. Was it him that did this to the baby? And she was silent for a moment, and the tone in her voice I will never, ever forget. She said, pretty much, yep. Just like there's no other option, and he's already done it once. And I couldn't fathom what she was going through at that moment, and having to be the person to, tell people this is what's going on, this is what's happening. She blamed herself for all of this that happened. And she blamed herself for all the pain that she was causing her family, even though she wasn't. She was not the one that caused this. But she died thinking that and feeling that. And that is not, that is not okay. That really, really, really makes me angry. So after we talked about the fact that she knew it was Tyler that did this, she told me about how, they immediately called off the whip. He moved out of her grandparents' house. They went no contact, even though there was one little bit of contact, but it was to update for the baby. But that was all she had been in contact with him for. And all of a sudden she goes, I have to tell you something, and I can't tell anybody else, and I can't tell my family because I've already upset them enough, but I have to tell you. And I was like, okay. She said, I am going to get answers today. And she stressed the word today. I said, what do you mean? She said, I am going to get answers today. I need to know why he hurt our precious, perfect little baby. I need to know what made him act as such and hurt our little baby. He was our baby. He's perfectly, he was perfect. What made him? She said, I have to know. I have to know right now. And she's like, so I'm going today. And I was like, oh, crap. And she promised me, I told her, I said, Autumn, please be careful. Just maybe do it someplace public, someplace where he can't make a scene. Let's, just make sure it's someplace safe. And she promised me it was going to be someplace safe. And so she went and she had a pedicure. She didn't have her pedicure. She told her mom, and she did tell me too, she was getting a pedicure, and she was super excited about it because she was going to get an extra long massage. And, another reason she was feeling like she was going to go do all these things today and had that energy was because all of a sudden she felt like she was a warrior, and she was going to go fight for her children, and nothing was going to stop her. And so she was really excited to go after she confronted him to get that extra 20-minute massage on her feet. And she did mention that a couple of times during our conversation, but she never made it to get her toes done. And she met up with him at Green Lake instead.
If you have any information about what happened to Autumn at Green Lake, you can contact the Seattle Police Department's Homicide Unit at 206-233-5000. If you enjoyed this episode and want to show appreciation, you can buy me a coffee at the link in the description. If you want to support the podcast on a monthly basis, you can head to the Patreon. For $5 a month, you get ad and sponsor-free episodes, exclusive content, and early access to all new episodes of the podcast. I'll also post monthly updates on what's to come, so you know what I have the works and what to expect. For those of you who bought me a coffee or subscribed to Patreon in the last few weeks, thank you so much for the support. As we close out, I'm going to leave you with a clip from the next episode of this series. Thanks for listening to the Missing and Unexplained podcast.
This case was fraught with just errors and just horrible police detective work. and it became very apparent. I ordered up the public records. I told them that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to get public records, and I got it. I got, not all, but I got a lot of reports. I mean, and I just sat there for days pouring through, police reports, narratives, officer reports, detective reports. We got the ME involved, got the ME stuff. I got the photos from the, so we did a lot of legwork in the beginning. From that, I developed the timeline. From the timeline, we developed questions. We developed inaccurate reporting from SPD. I mean, we just blew it up. I became a real bad thorn in SPD's side, not intentionally, but the detective in charge just didn't do a good job.